Okay, so there's many paths to take as a writer, especially online, and especially today. In today's world where everybody makes it super simple to get started, and you have access to an ocean of information, even real information. So I'm not going over that here in a minute, but making money online as a writer has a ton of paths available, and people are sending me emails, and there's all kinds of different ways you can go. Um, I first started in one, and I just kind of expanded into many. So it's always good to diversify, mostly because, especially if you're doing a content mills. So if you decided to start with a content mill, I suggest starting with Textbroker. That's where I made most of my money on content mills, and then I was able to sign up with quite a few more, but only three were constantly giving me work. So I had tabs open for Textbroker, Writer Access, and Fiverr, and I would just bounce back and forth until I got work, and that's how I kept busy most of the time. Not most of the time, but a big chunk of it. Eventually, Textbroker started sending me all kinds of orders, direct order clients. I started making. I can charge. I think I was charging 3.7 cents a word. Um, it was a constant flow of work, and so I didn't need the other ones. But it was nice to know that if I needed to, I could always bounce back and forth through those others, to like Writer Access. And Writer Access I made quite a bit on, and I made a handful of money on Fiverr, but when I broke it down per hour, I still made a lot more on Textbroker than I did on Fiverr. So Fiverr is a good system, but I made more on other systems. Um, but anyway, how did I progress over the last decade? Well, to start off, I did start with content mills, several of them, as a matter of fact, and I kept doing content mills up until 2017. In fact, I think my last article in Textbook was like in 2018, and I did it because I felt bad for the team I was on. Um, Not because I lost interest in content mills, but because my private clients were paying me far more, which I'll go over here in a minute. But I started with the content mills, and from there I learned everything I possibly could about AP style writing. I spent a ton of time in Google researching everything I could possibly learn and putting it into practice. So, from content mills, I moved on to blogging. That's when I built WriterSanctuary. And with WriterSanctuary, I was using it as a platform to essentially work on my abilities to write. And I started learning, or everything I learned on Google, I would take to the blog and I would put it into practice almost immediately. And then I would use all that, everything I learned, and put it into writing content for clients. But I started building up Writer Sanctuary, and Chris can attest to this, where at first I was using it as a journal type thing, and then I'd start writing articles here and there, trying to um, trying to put into practice everything I learned. Because the more often you do something, the more it gets ingrained into your head, which is why teachers have you. Well, back in the day, teachers used to have you write down everything, because when you write it down, you remember better. And so I took the blogs and did the exact same thing. And over the years, I've developed one blog after another because my interests bounce all over the place, but that's a personal issue because the thing that made me such a success on Textbroker is what's causing me to be so miserable today. It's my ability to jump from one topic to another seamlessly. So I could write articles anywhere, in everything from animals to travel. And so I was able to bounce a lot. And that's what helped me become a success in content mills, because I could just bam, 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 bounce all over the place. And so that kind of bled into my personal life when I gained an interest in health and fitness, because I was at that point weighing 300 plus pounds and I had to do something, so I built Crossing Colorado. I'm also somewhat of a gamer, so I built Colorado Plays, mostly to help Extra Life, because 30% of everything that website makes goes directly to Extra Life right off the top. No questions asked. And so I built that site, which coincidentally gets more traffic than anything else. Then I built my personal blog. That one is more centric to everything I do online. So if you have any wonder about all the different things I do on the internet, go to michaelbrockbank.com and you'll find out everything I do. That's Creative Sanctuary, Writer Sanctuary, Crossing Colorado, Colorado Plays, Practically Living Green, Green Geeks, all my work, everything I do is right based right there. So michaelbrockbank.com is kind of like my base of operations. I don't even monetize it. I have links to my book going to Amazon, but I don't have any ads or anything on it. It doesn't get a lot of traffic. It's mostly there so I can just write about random stuff that comes to mind. And then I built, shortly after that, Practically Living Green, which was part of a series I was doing on YouTube back in the day. I started off building a better blog. And I got about a little bit of the way through it, and then something happened, and I couldn't keep going, and it sat there for a while. And that's when I hired another writer to start getting some articles on it. He does a really good job, and so I pay him per word for articles 3 times a week. I'm barely able to pay that. And so I've got some big plans coming for that particular blog. But anyway, my point is that in the meantime, I was doing content mills. I was also running the blogs, which can be quite lucrative if you put a lot of effort into it. So there's that's just the first two. Next up, I moved on to private clients. Now, private clients will pay you far more than content mills ever will. I make the vast majority of my money comes from my private clients. And if it wasn't for learning everything I could on content mills, I wouldn't have those private clients I have today. The content mills were just a jumping point. I never tell anybody they should just stick with Text Broker and stay, and that's it. That's the end all be all. No. Expand, grow, do some more stuff. And so once you start getting private clients and they start liking your work, some of them might pay you for an article a month. Some will give you a daily pay or daily jobs to do. So it really depends. But you can line up all kinds of private clients, and especially if you have a LinkedIn profile. Because on LinkedIn, I get a lot of inquiries from big name companies that want to hire me to do the same thing I do for Green Geeks. And so I'd like where I'm at though. And so if I did take on more clients, I'd have to cut out a lot of the other stuff I'm doing. And right now, I don't want to do that. So it's not always about money. It's also about making yourself happy. Because if you're miserable as a writer and you're not feeling fulfilled, it's going to backfire. Speaking of which, shortly about this time in 2016, when I started talking with Green Geeks at first, I did go through a hell of a phase where it's in the book, but it was one of the worst depressions of my life. And I got to a point to where after, 4 years of writing content for other people, I started thinking, I wanted more out of being a writer. I didn't want to just be a copywriter for the rest of my life. I wanted to do other things. So that's when I started looking into what can I do to publish my own work. And then I started my Wattpad account and I started writing there. Well, we all know how that went. Not very far. But it did give me a chance to be a little bit more creative. And looking back, I'm definitely going to have to rewrite all the stories I wrote back then because, man, that is cringeworthy as shit. Grammarly just starts flagging everything. So I am going to be fixing all those after in a while. I don't know if it'll be this year or what, but 7 is definitely going to be fixed. But my point is that I didn't want to just float through life as a content mill writer or as a copywriter for a business. I wanted to do more. So that's when I started playing around with publishing. Now, I didn't get into self-publishing just yet. I started playing around with CreateSpace back in the day. Now, this is Amazon's platform before they created Kindle Create, or the KDP platform, the Kindle Direct Publishing. CreateSpace, I even have the bookmark, and the site is still live because there's a lot of CreateSpace users, but they do tell you to use KDP instead. So I started doing some research on CreateSpace and seeing what I can do to self-publish. But at that point, that's when I crashed and burned, um, exploded and imploded, moved to LA. Things just went south quickly. But I eventually came home 6 months later. At that point, I started messing around with more blogging and writing platforms like Vocal, Hub Pages, and Medium. Now, I haven't really done a lot on those, and I just wanted to see what kind of money I could make just by randomly writing stuff. So at that point, I wrote like one or two articles on Hub Pages. I did one or two on Vocal and one on Medium. And I still get like 5 cents a month from the one on Medium. They changed their shit, so I don't get that 5 cents a month anymore, which is a bummer. So I'll have to do another video on it because they changed up how it works. So, but yeah, it is what it is. So, and then from all of that, I moved on to writing my autobiography, A Freelancer's Tale, last year. And even though it is an autobiography, its sole purpose is to help me learn more about self-publishing. Um, I don't even care if it makes a lot of sales or not. It has served its purpose. The book was intentional for me to go through the process of KDP, self-publishing. I'll be doing it on Barnes and Noble this week. There's a lot of good that's coming out of that book, and I've only made like 22 sales on it. But the point is that it served its purpose, and so using it, I'm able to prepare myself for when I'm actually ready and able to publish Kingmaker coming May 1st. And so I'm halfway through my first novel, or my first fantasy novel with the release date, and I'm kind of excited. Like, well, more than kind of excited. I'm really excited. Um, so those are the different ways I made money online as a writer throughout my career. Most of it did come from private clients and content mills. I have made a handful of bucks on Vocal, Hub Pages, and Medium. Not a lot. I plan on doing a little bit more with those this year just to see if I can get them to bring anything in more than like 50 cents a month. But, and then I self-published my novel. And that is just a handful of the different things you can do online as a writer. Businesses pay for all kinds of writing services, from blog content to emails to YouTube video descriptions and more. If you're able to put words together in a coherent manner that actually is grammatically correct, somebody will pay you for it. You just got to find the good clients that'll do it. They're out there. But you also got to be careful of the scammers that are out there, because there's a lot of people that try to get as much as they can out of you, and you got to gauge, is it worth my time? That's one of the biggest issues I see with a lot of new writers, is that they'll underbid themselves to the point to where the job isn't worth it. If you take your time and you calculate it per hour to see how much you make when you're writing someone's content, and if it's less than what you would make at Walmart or McDonald's, don't take the job. It's not worth it. You might as well just move on. And I've seen a lot of authors that'll underbid the hell out of themselves just to get the job. And, you can't live that way. You can't sustain yourself. And I laugh at those people because, they don't think that they'll get another opportunity. Well, that's not the case. The internet is full of people who are willing to throw money at you. A lot of money at you. You just got to take your time and look for them. And don't undercut yourself. And that's something that we talk about all the time. Like Megan Grant and I had a conversation recently on Twitter about that. So it's a reality. You can't shoot yourself in the foot. I mean, you might as well just work at Walmart at that point. But something else I wanted to bring up was no, you don't need a proper education to learn how to write. It vastly improves your success rate and how much you're worth. But I went to school for graphic design back in 2000. So I am nowhere near my wheelhouse. Well, It wasn't when I first started. I had no idea what AP style was. Not a clue. I liked writing. I loved doing my favorite class or course in college was art history. I loved writing essays. And I impressed the shit out of one of my professors who wound up keeping my essay. She asked me if she can keep it. I'm like, sure. Why do I care? But apparently she loved it. So I've always had a knack for writing, but I really didn't explore what I could do with it until much later. And I don't have any proper education on any of it. It's all natural talent and everything I learned through Google. I've spent the last 10 years going through everything for AP style and recently going through everything for creative writing. So there is that. I do plan on taking some master courses eventually. Um, there's a couple that piqued my interest, but as it stands, I'm just essentially winging it, putting it all together as I go. But not everybody has that level of natural talent, I guess. I'm not trying to pat myself on the back here, but um, I don't have. I didn't even finish college. Like I had to drop out with 3.8 grade point average, but I couldn't find funding at all, so I had to drop out before I even got my associates, which kind of blows, but it is what it is. So I have some college, but when it comes to writing, nah. It's just an extreme interest. I've been doing it since I was 12. So, yeah. You definitely don't need to go to school for it, but you do need to know how to string a sentence together because no private client is going to pay you for junk. So, you got to learn to write. But content is king. Remember that. And a lot of people will pay for intelligent writers.